evening. This is the zoning subcommittee meeting for April 8th, 2019. Madam Clerk.
Roll call of the members of the zoning subcommittee. Councilor Janino is absent. Councilor Keefe?
Here.
Here. Councilor Novoselsky? Here. Councilor Rizzo is absent. Ex officio member Council President Guanasso?
Here.
Here. And Chairman Zambuto?
Here.
Here. Quorum is present. First item on the agenda is the proposed moratorium for rooming and lodging houses.
This is Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I know this has been pending for a while, and I guess you were waiting to hear from our city solicitor on this. And I believe, it's something that we want to prepare for the ordinance for Airbnbs. And it's going to give us 9 months to do this, and we won't give out any rooming house or lodging house licenses until we can put that together. So I think a lot of people are looking forward to this. They want us to have a chance to put something together and give us time to do it so nobody else will come in and over these 9 months, and hopefully we can do this over the next 9 months, if not before. So that's where I stand right now, Mr. President. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors want to speak on this item? Councilor Patch, welcome. Glad to see you, my friend. No one else? Can we hear from the city solicitor? I didn't want to offer any false information. I wanted to have you speak before I did.
Sure. Members of the committee, Paul Capizzi, city solicitor. As I understand it, I was asked to explain whether or not short-term rental would include rooming houses, lodging houses, boarding houses. Is that my understanding?
The idea was to, depending on what we put in the ordinance, if we only limit it to buildings of 4 units, then they're not an issue. They can't do it. So that's when I guess the chairman asked you to come up to explain that. But, I didn't want, because I got word that some of the rooming houses and lodging houses that exist are looking to utilize Airbnb in some of their, not necessarily all the rooms, but some of the rooms. So, I'm just looking to restrict it to not to go into those, and maybe within the ordinances that we built, that we put together, that we limit it to X amount of units on a piece of property.
I will tell you this, that we're still in the process of drafting it with some members actually of this committee that are sitting with myself in the mayor's office putting this together. And as it's drafted right now, though this is not the final draft, a short-term rental, what you're calling Airbnb, would not include a hotel, a motel, a licensed rooming house or lodging house, or a licensed bed and breakfast. Those are completely separate things that we license separately. So a lodging house or a rooming house could not become a short-term rental. They already are kind of short-term rentals, so that doesn't make sense. The short-term rental, as I understand it, is if your own property, your own apartment, your own home, your own condo, you want to rent it short-term while you're away. That's very different and distinct from a rooming house or a lodging house. But again, this is just a draft, and you folks will all get to see it before you consider it for passage.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Go right ahead.
The whole idea is, right now, those rooming houses and lodging houses can put in an Airbnb.
But
there's no regulations.
But they're already being rented as rooms. How do you then rent it as a short-term rental? I don't understand that. I'm missing something here in the
rooming houses. The rooming houses, when you say short-term, are not really short-term, because there are rooming houses, 3 of them in my area. One has a lodging license by continuation of a non-conforming use as grandfathered in. But the other 2, the people living there 365 days a year, they don't move. They stay there. So they're really not short-term.
That's correct. But I mean, are you saying that people that live there are then renting it as a short-term rental?
They could. And the owner could.
Right. Well, under the ordinance as drafted, That would not be permitted.
Right, and I understand that, but this 9-month moratorium would stop anybody in the lodging world, because like I said, right now, they could do it if they wanted to, because there's no regulation for it, and I want to give us time to put this new ordinance together so nobody can do it now in those buildings. And that's the reason for this.
Understood.
Is that within reason to do this and to proceed with this?
Sure. What, proceed with the short-term rental ordinance?
With the 9-month moratorium.
Look into the moratorium in and of itself. I'm only telling you that I'm only here to talk about the short-term rental ordinance as we're drafting, what we're considering to put into that ordinance. I didn't consider that or prepare for it.
Okay, so let me interrupt here for a second. So am I to understand that there's so much flexibility in a rooming house license that you don't have to go by certain rules and regulations by the license? Isn't there restrictions in a rooming house license that says that you can't? Well, I mean, it just seems bizarre to me that
I don't think the I'm not understanding
I don't know
what's
how that
happening.
could be a problem. I just don't believe that would ever be a problem. But maybe I'm naive. I guess, you know.
If I understand Councilor Novoselsky, what he's telling me is that the person who rents the room in the rooming house and maybe rents it year-round or lives there essentially could then rent it, sublet it, for lack of a better term, as a short-term rental when they're not there.
Most of these places I don't think are that desirable, but maybe I'm wrong. I guess I don't want to discourage anybody. I guess I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that alone.
The buildings we have, the 3 we have are in excellent condition.
Oh, really?
They're in excellent. They're not bed bug heaven.
I think before we go forward with this moratorium, I'm going to want a lot more information, some from you, as to what restrictions are. Maybe we need to go to the License Commission. I want to know what is what and what is actually real that could happen. And I've never been fond of moratoriums. I don't want to mislead anybody, let anybody think that I've all of a sudden jumped on a moratorium bandwagon. I don't think I've ever supported any moratoriums. But if I can be convinced that it's really needed, then I'll support it, obviously.
I mean, I have no idea, and maybe Ira knows a lot more about this. I don't think the License Commission is aware of this, or that anyone is aware that rooming houses are now also being used as short-term rental. They do have their own rules and regulations that the License Commission applies to the license for the rooming houses. We can find out from the License Commission what those are, of course.
Yes, I definitely want some more information. Mr. President.
Mr. Chairman, I think what we do, and very shortly, through the efforts of a couple of councilors on the City Council and the Council of the Whole, by the way, are working very handedly to present to the Committee of the Whole a package in terms of short-term rentals. And I think within that provision, they've already met some of the criteria that would prohibit such a thing. But I think in the short-term rentals, in terms of a rooming house, I think there are certain things that you need in the short term. You need a private individual bath. I don't think you can have a common shared bathroom. I think you need to, so there's certain provisions that require different attention. So I don't think that that's going to come into being also. But I know that very shortly this council will be preparing and seeing a presentation from a couple of councilors in reference. It's mostly Councilor Giannino and Councilor McKenna. Councilor Keefe, rather, with the short-term rentals, that the Legislative Affairs is going to come in and give us a package that we think that would be a valid one, and we'd supersede any other city in town, because what we've done is, and this is only through conversation that I hear from the councilors, that we've gotten input from different towns and cities, and I think we're going to put forward a terrific package to help in this particular problem. So I'm looking forward to that, and I think once you speak with the chair for Legislative Affairs, he will tell you more the update on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Council President, and I want to thank all of you that are involved in that committee. That's really good work you're doing, and it's very important work. Councilor Keefe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Much like Councilor Guanasso said, these are really, they are two separate types of ordinances or types of housing or home, rental units versus housing and short-term. But I think to Council Novoselsky and to Council Guanasso, some of these problems that you want to address are going to be resolved in the ordinance that we're going to be putting forth, I would say within the next 30 days. We're almost with our finishing draft to bring to the council, so that'll probably resolve most of your issues. I don't know if there's I would have no problem with putting a moratorium on rooming houses throughout the city. I think that we're pretty overburdened as it is. However, I don't know if necessarily the council is really in favor of approving any right now anyway, so if someone was to come to the council, I can't think of many areas where we would want these, so I think the council would probably end up voting them down regardless. But that's just my feeling. Thank you.
Any other councilors? Councilor Novoselsky.
Yeah, when I put this in, I was looking to protect the city, and from all this, and I don't know why we keep hesitating from just putting it in, giving us the chance to do it, and giving us the 9 months. It doesn't have to go through the full 9 months. Once the new rules go into effect, this would be over because they won't be able to do it. But on the other hand, let me say this, that the longer you keep it in here, there's kind of a moratorium going on now because nobody can pull a license to do a rooming house or a lodging house based on what we're doing right here because it's already in process. So if this committee released it, okay, it would be 9 months from when the council approved it. But if you kept it in committee, now what's happening is there is kind of a moratorium because nobody can pull licenses for it. And I don't know if the solicitor could confirm or deny that, but right now something's already in the process and nobody can do anything while things are in process. So, and I don't know how long we can keep it in committee. It's 60 days. 90 days, so maybe by that time, the ordinance will come out and it'll be a moot point.
I think at that point, if we're still not ready to pass that ordinance, then we consider it, and that's after I've got the rest of the information that I'm looking for. So, yeah, I think that's fine. So we'll just leave this in committee. Next order of business, please.
Next item on the agenda is James George on behalf of AT&T Wireless to install small cell wireless equipment on an existing National Grid wood utility pole at the corner of 116 State Road and 4 Unity Ave.
Mr. George.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Ladies and gentlemen of the subcommittee, for the record, James George. I'm representing Extenet and AT&T Wireless for a small cell special permit application for the wood utility pole at 116 State Road. I wanted to take a moment, and I'd like to get into a cadence of 3 or 4 minutes. There was concern about radio frequency emissions, and over the past 20 years, I have stood next to or sat next to very bright people, and everybody has a way of trying to explain this to people. I've developed a way, very short, and try to be specific to the questions that the body asked last time, so 3 or 4 minutes. And then I will address the specific reports of a compliance. I have submitted the material to the body. Radio frequency. One question that was asked is, I think this goes to the standard that the FCC has developed since way back in 1996 when I was building cell towers. They developed a standard that they called it a bright red line. That standard, as the Gs have developed, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, has been continually looked at in their federal reporting. So there was discussion about that not being looked at a lot. It's looked at annually. Specifically, there are some good statements in this particular report in the last reassessment that they did of the exposure to radio frequency electromagnetic fields, limits, and policies, dated 2013. This report I'm going to quote from, and I think it hits the mark on a lot of the questions that this body has. Directly from the report, I'll do this 2 or 3 times, but I really think it hits the mark, because I don't like to get technical with the stuff, because I'm not qualified for that. The intent of the Commission's exposure limits is to provide a cap that both protects the public based on scientific consensus and allows for efficient and practical implementation of the wireless services. They call this a bright red line rule. That's the actual term they use. Bright red line about FCC standard, about what all these people got together and they realized what would be the standard for acceptable MPE in wireless. The Commission's current RF exposure guidelines are an example of intense regulation, including a significant, what they called a safety factor, whereby the exposure limits are set at a level on the order of 50 times below the level at which adverse biological effects have been observed in laboratory animals as a result of tissue heating resulting in RF exposure. So they set a level, they called another safety factor in, and they reduced that level to 50%. There isn't any application that I have seen in my 20 years that has come anywhere near that 50%. 5%, 6%, 5% is pretty much the basic that any macro situation would have if you're right up against the antenna. The theory also, and this is important, the further you get from the antenna, the radon, the less effect it has. So this particular report and most reports give you a reading right at the antenna, and then they back themselves up all the way to the street. So with that said, that's how that standard was developed. It was developed in conjunction with several different organizations. The World Health Organization. Now, if you Google around, a lot of people come up with World Health Organization. Has concluded on its review that all available studies have concluded that there is no convincing scientific evidence that the weak RF signals from base stations and wireless networks cause adverse health effects. Another agency involved with this dialogue is the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, has determined and based on all available evidence that there is no increased health risk due to radio frequency energy. National Cancer Institute. Despite the rise in cell phone use, brain cancer rates did not increase between 1987 and 2005. The society today uses their cell phones. They are transient in the sense that it is difficult to come up with an all-encompassing worldview about how this radiation affects everybody. You're walking down the street, you're sleeping in a bed, you get up and go to work, you're driving your car. You are constantly engaged in a bubble of radio frequency emissions depending on where you are at any given time of the day. Every person is in a different place at any given time of the day. That's why it's somewhat difficult to pin this stuff down. And there's a lot of dialogue about how to pin it down. Well, when you put a rat in a cage and you beam him up, that's pinning him down. When you are transient, that's more difficult to do. Specifically to the application of 116 State Road. The FCC, the radio frequency compliant EME study, specific to this particular pole, uses a worst case scenario. They have a software that is developed through the industry, radio frequency engineers, that develops a worst case scenario, which means they put it right up, the model itself is based on the spec sheet of the antenna used and the dynamic of height and the spec sheet. They produce their model. That model produces a number based on the specs and the distance between the worst case, which is right next to it. They then distance it out. The worst case scenario for this particular small cell, which is a small cell antenna, low power, is at a level of 0.238% of the FCC's occupational limit and 1.19 of the FCC's general population limit. Those percentages are against 100% and are well beneath the 50% plateau and the safety margin that was developed. I have a high degree of confidence based on these reports. I've seen thousands of these things in macro and now with small cell, that this particular small cell is compliant based on the specific report and is safe and will not emit radio frequency emissions that will make anybody sick. The level by which the nearest building to this is 11 feet. It's basically at the corner of that intersection. State and Unity go up. 11 feet takes it from the sidewalk to the edge of that building, and then it goes beyond that. These are low power, and I say they emit less than 1,000 feet, 3 city blocks, 2-minute walk. They piff. The reason why they're in Ward 1, this particular one is there for a reason. Back when I was up at T-Mobile doing a project, a new build, I was up on that hill. And I tried to find roofs, I tried to find all kinds of things to put this on. We didn't want to make a deal with the MBTA, and it all fell apart. I know that you don't have any coverage up there from anybody. T-Mobile, AT&T, nobody. It's the dynamic of the topography, and the reason why I can't build a tower because of the flight zone. I can't build a tower up there. There's nothing tall. The notion of small cell is you've got AT&T in their towers and their rooftops around the city. That part of Ward 1 is topography, the topo is challenging, and there is not a telecommunications facility macro going into it that isn't already fizzled out. The notion of small cell, and there's a ton of these happening, is to stick themselves in the center. What a radio frequency engineer says, I need that here, and to give you that side of the hill. As the signal goes up the hill, the signal becomes less effective. So they're going to have to go on the other side of the hill and do another one. So I think that this particular one will give that area of Ward 1 good coverage. It'll go from half a bar to 3 bars, and you'll be able to download your bandwidth. The need for bandwidth in the United States is without question insatiable. We have to keep driving forward through government regulations and getting this thing done, and the way that they're spending their money is on these small cells. I remember the pivot from towers, you got to go something smaller, no more towers. I get that. So they're going with these small cells. Every 500, 600 feet. They're going to propagate these 0.25% of what they're allowed, and they're just going to engage bandwidth into that general area. They target the areas that don't have it. You're not going to see one of these go directly within a block of an existing macro site of AT&T. You'll see them on, it's not even outskirts, it's based on topography and what this thing is banging into. You'll see them in the dense areas of the city, the dense residential, the schools, outside the schools, because they've determined that the need for that particular place is sucking the existing macro need, the propagation is happening, and they need to just put a puff and blast in that school or around that campus. To illustrate that, I'm doing a lot around college campuses, Babson, Northeastern, UMass. You've got a college campus, they've got a tower over there, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, around the campus, bang, 3 blocks in. That campus is lit up. So that's the notion behind the small cell. So to wrap this up, the application itself, a 116 State Road, is compliant to your application procedures. I have both licenses, so I have land control. I have a right-of-way agreement with the jurisdiction, so I have land control and easement control. I've got both licenses, and I've got a compliant radio frequency EME report, which completes the requirements of the application. I'm hopeful that my explanation at least gave you a little bit more guidance on how the standards are applied, and I feel they're safe. Somebody use the word safe a lot. They are safe for the general public. Thank you very much. I'll answer questions if you have them.
I'm going to go to the ward council first in kind of a breaking of our tradition of going to the committee members first, but Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. James, respectfully, I totally disagree with everything you're saying. I'm sorry. First of all, when cigarettes came out, no one knew that they would cause cancer, okay? Years later, they find out that the cigarettes cause cancer. You're saying that there were studies done 1987 to 2005 that these cells don't create any kind of cancer or anything. The thing is that's 2005, that's 13 years ago. You know, we've increased in technology. I do believe that believe that these cells cause cancer. I've read a lot of stuff on the internet, and as my chairman says, where's the proof? Let's see the proof, let's see the proof. And it's just document after document after document after document that these cells do cause cancer. One of the documents I read, and I read it a while ago, and it was just on the news that they just removed a cell tower from that was on a school site property. 4 children came down with cancer, and a doctor said that a certain cancer that they had was set by radiation. So I am so against this. I really am. I don't have cell phone service in my house, like I told you. I have no I have to stand in the middle of the room. Everybody always says, what? Can't hear you. What? Can't hear you. I would love this, but I am not going to put it near a house, which I'm very concerned about, 4 Unity Ave. You say 4 Unity Ave, they've got the address wrong, but what I know of 4 Unity Ave is right in front of someone's house. And I don't want a cell phone, I wouldn't want a cell phone tower or an antenna in front of my house. So I'm totally against 4 Unity Ave. If you want to put it across the street from, I don't think we have a say anyways. I think we have to vote on this. And we have to vote yes, or there could be a lawsuit or whatever, but I am totally against 4 Unity Ave, and I'll say no to this. If you want to put it on State Road in front of the Beachmont train station, that's fine. You also said that the further away from the antenna, the less radiation it causes. Is that so? You're going to put an antenna on 4 Unity Ave, and you were saying it's right in front of Columbian restaurant, but that's State Road. And if you go up the hill, that's 4 Unity Ave. So if you're going to put it in front of someone's house, I'm totally against this, totally. And I'm sorry, respectfully, I don't agree with anything you're saying. I'm sorry. I believe that these cell antennas give off microwave radiation, depending on if it's this big or this big, I don't know. I even called my brother, who's an inventor. He has 23 patents. He worked for Analogic Computers, Analogic and Peabody, and he called a scientist. But a scientist couldn't give him any information because it's all brand new. It's all brand new. But what's going to happen in 10 years from now is we're going to find out that these cell towers are extremely dangerous, and they're causing massive cancer and massive, illnesses. So I am totally against this. If I have to vote for it, I'm not going to anyways, but I'm not going to vote for it, but I will not put it in front of a residential house, a residential property. I will not. So, thank you.
Thank you, Council McKenna. Council President Guanasso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur fully with Councilor McKenna. Based on the fact that I did see the report and watch the TV presentation that was given on the news in reference to Weston, Massachusetts. It's a town of Weston that it clearly spelled out that these children did get cancer, and previously they have no history at all of any children getting cancer in that particular area. And so that's just one little thought that has in mind. But what I've done, sir, and to my colleagues, I've got some research here through different types of information that I want to forward over to the City Council and to you, Mr. Chairman. But the first one is, how do you oppose 5G cell towers? Very clearly, there's case law in California where the town of Hillsborough, California, denied application of 16 tower requests, and it was upheld by the courts, and also was upheld by the state of California's governor, Governor Jerry Brown. So that's the only thing I disagree with Councilor McKenna is that we have to vote for it. We know we don't have to vote for that. And that's what litigation's all about. We have a difference of an opinion. We share our valued opinion. We represent people that we're trying to protect. And we are not scientists. We might bring this to another level where people who are more qualified and versed on it to speak on it. But the more you educate yourself on something, the more you see the validity of what you're talking about in opposition. And these documents, Mr. Chairman, will help your committee and yourself make a conscientious effort to come up with a fair decision based on what you know. And Councilor McKenna, you said it very, very nicely and very, very briefly. And years back, the health industry was saying it's okay to smoke. Now, all of a sudden, we know differently. And for the past several years, we've known differently. And we've known the lives that we've damaged throughout all those years. I was a smoker. As soon as I was told about the facts of what was going on with me, I stopped right on the spot. That was in 1967. Never to pick up another cigarette again. Because it was so injurious to my health. If I wanted to get my gums cut out, I'd keep smoking. If I wanted to do nothing, stop smoking. Very simple. Mm-hmm. So people should be made aware of the cell problem that we have. And I have a cell phone. So I do depend on transmission from the cell tower. But I think 5G oversteps that. And I probably have a 5G phone here, and it's probably radiating right now as I speak. But and it's true. And you come up and you're stating these things, but we're trying to protect a little small communities called Revere. We're trying to protect our inhabitants. We're trying to make it as health safety as possible. So, Mr. Chairman, rather than belabor this, I ask that I submit this to you and your committee, and that we review what the contents of this is, if it has any validity at all. I find it to be so interesting and worthy of contention that we should, on the basis of this information, and I'm not speaking for any other council, you can vote however you think is right. I am voting no, based on the fact of what I've received here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Council President, for doing the research, and I appreciate it because you're the first one. I asked our firefighters to submit some paperwork. I haven't received it yet. This gentleman submitted a report, and now you're the first person that's actually given me any documentation, which is how we're supposed to work up here, is that we make informed decisions. You can't make informed decisions without all the information that's available. Councilor Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do believe, and not to contradict you, Mr. Chairman, but I do believe you were part of some emails that come from some concerned residents in opposition to this. But again,
I hate to interrupt you.
Right.
I've received emails of people that are against it. Yes, correct. I have. However, that is not the type of information I'm looking for.
Correct.
I'm looking for scientific data.
Correct. Well, there was some articles that had, data.
Yeah, there's a lot of articles.
Correct.
I want documents so I can judge whether they're from pie-in-the-sky websites or they're actual documentation, like a report that this gentleman submitted. And, I'm going to keep this in committee, but I want everybody to understand the longer we keep this in committee, it could just go forward without, I don't know how much time we have on this particular permit, but...
Mr. Chairman, my speech, I wasn't here to contradict you, like I said.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
do apologize. I just wanted to make sure that you make reference to, there was some communication and lack of support of this from some constituents. Also, like you had mentioned, there was a particular firefighter that, he had a stack of information. Again, I'm not sure if he submitted it or not. I wanted to make sure that, for the record, he had sent a letter to the council, which I had forwarded to Madam Clerk Melnick and yourself before the committee. And that was from Captain O'Hara.
Again, and I appreciate that,
right.
But that is an email opposing the special permit.
So,
not based in science and fact.
Correct.
What I want is documentation so that we can all make an informed decision.
Thank you. And I'm glad that meeting with Council President Guanasso before the meeting, he had instructed me that he was bringing you some informed information, which I'm glad he did for us. Thank you. But what I wanted to, basically make my comments real brief. Sometimes there's topics that come up in front of the council and we feel very strongly about, and sometimes we are very knowledgeable about. I'm not a public health expert, and I don't want to pretend to be. I will never be a public health expert. So when those types of things come in front of us, I rely on some of my fellow councilors. Sometimes I rely on the experts. And it just, from my uneducated opinion, you have a good article, you have a bad article, you have good information, you have information against it. So the next thing I go towards is the people that I represent. And I can tell you that I have yet to receive one positive comment from a person that I represent. I've received dozens of calls and emails from people I do represent in opposition to this. So, I know that I'm not sure if you're going to be going to vote. I would not be able to support this tonight. Thank you.
Councilor, who's up? Councilor Morabito, you have anything on this? No? Councilor Janino? No. Okay, so this is going to remain in committee for...
Can I rebut for 30 seconds?
Yeah, you certainly can.
All right,
it is going to remain in committee until our next council meeting.
What's the date of that meeting?
April 22nd.
Okay, just to rebut a couple of things very respectfully. The particular pole that we're talking about is directly at the corner of the commercial area. It's not in front of 4 Unity. So the photograph. If I could give this to Ashley, could show the council the photograph. That particular pole is right at the corner. The 4 Unity is not directly abut. The FCC on the radio frequency emissions, as I said, I'll say it again, it's constantly reviewed and updated in the sense of reassessing the problems and the needs and gathering of every radio frequency expert that they can get their hands on. The standing guideline in litigation, specifically for radio frequency, is Section 704 of the 1996 TCA. I feel the need to read the statement out loud, please. Respectfully, no state or local government or instrumentality, therefore, may regulate the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless service facilities on the basis of environmental effects or radio frequency emissions to the extent that such facilities comply with the Commission's regulations concerning such emissions. This particular report, specifically for this particular small cell, is .26 of the federally guidelined areas of EME. We must respect the federal guidelines. There's really, as a carrier, as a licensed carrier, in order to maintain our license, that is our pole. And I feel just as strongly as the body does that these are safe. I have one outside of my home, 158A Lafayette Street. I put it there. I argue with it, and I put it there. It's Sprint. It's 25 feet from my bedroom. I feel completely comfortable, if that means anything to anybody. On the timeline, the federal shot clock, 60 days. On April 22nd, you're approaching those 60 days. So what the government did is tighten the timeline up to at least address and advance the application especially based on radio frequency if it gets into that dialogue. So it is 60 days, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next order of business, please.
Next special permit on the agenda is Thesis LLC, Barris Burke, 109 Eustis Street, seeking permission from the Revere City Council to allow the current daycare preschool use to be changed to a professional office use at 283 Cushman Ave.
Councilor.
Good evening, Councilors. Corey Rhodes with D'Ambrosio Brown, LLP, 14 Proctor Avenue in Revere. We represent the petitioner, Thesis LLC, and its manager, Barris Burke. Somewhat of a straightforward proposal. This is the property at 283 Cushman, right across the street from the Wheelan School. There is a long-standing daycare use at this property. My client is under contract to purchase the property and would like to convert that daycare use to a real estate brokerage office. So it's a professional office special permit is what we're asking for, and a special permit for non-conforming use. There is no expansion of the building being proposed or added units or anything like that. It is strictly related to the use. We think this will be a much more beneficial use to the neighborhood, not having as much traffic with people dropping off and picking up kids. And this will be traditional working hours for this business, 9 to 6. And there were some neighbors here at the last hearing that had some concerns about trees on the property. My client has met with them. As far as I understand, their concerns are going to be addressed after the closing, and they're not here tonight. I assume they're happy about that discussion, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any councilors? Council Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Corey, I'm sorry, I didn't get to meet with you before.
No problem.
And I haven't had any negative response to this. But I have one question.
Sure.
Employees parking.
There proposed to be maybe 3 employees going to be working out of the office. It's a new firm. There are, I believe, 7 parking spaces on the property. I think the way brokerage firms work, they're oftentimes out meeting with prospective buyers or sellers, and it really time back at the office is not, you don't have everybody there at the same time, I guess is a way to put it.
Okay, like I said, Mr. Chairman, I haven't received any people against this development, so I'm going to be for it. Okay.
Thank you, Council Patch. I mean, it certainly looks like a lesser of an offensive to the neighborhood as what was there. Council President.
Mr. Chairman, I also agree with Councilor Patch and yourself. My area is just feet away from the location. I have no objection. People haven't spoken to me in opposition to this. It certainly is a better use, I think, less inclusion of traffic coming to the site, and so I think it's a better use. So, and being aware of somewhat what they do in the real estate market, there's 1 or 2 cars. They go. They're not there for 8 hours a day, yeah. and so it's very lightly traveled. I think it's a good use. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Council President. Any other councilors wish to speak on this? Okay, I believe the city clerk has some conditions to put on this.
These were conditions submitted by the Site Plan Review Committee. There's 3 of them. 1, the plans must be reviewed and approved for fire safety compliance by the fire department. 2, the construction plans must be reviewed and approved by the code consultant. And 3, pavement markings shall be used to appropriately mark the parking spaces for both the residential and office use.
I guess we'll have a vote of the committee.
Roll call on the special permit application subject to the findings and conditions of site plan review. Councilor Janino. Yes. Councilor Keefe.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo is absent. Ex officio Guanasso.
Yes.
Yes. And Chairman Zambuto.
Yes.
Yes. The special permit will be forwarded to the full City Council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes our meeting of the zoning subcommittee, and we will meet again April 22nd, probably at 5 o'clock, but we'll figure that out. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. This is the April 8th meeting of the Revere City Council Subcommittee for Appointments. This evening we have 5 items on our agenda, a couple of reappointments. I'll have the clerk call the roll for the committee members.
Roll call of the Appointments Subcommittee. Councilor Keefe.
Here.
Here. Councilor McKenna.
Here.
Here. Councilor Morabito.
Here.
Here. Councilor Powers is absent. Ex officio Guanasso.
Here.
Here, and Chairman Janino. Here, quorum is present.
First up is a reappointment of Raphael Construction as a licensed drain layer. Seeing as this is a reappointment, any counselors have any questions? Well, thank you for coming before us this evening. The next, Ash? All right, next item on our agenda is reappointment of ARM Construction as a licensed drain layer.
John Nakashian from 787 North Shore Road.
Thank you for joining us. Any counselors? Counselor Morbido.
I'm going to speak, I'm going to say the same thing for all reappointments. In the past, they've shown their service to the city. They've shown their record stands for itself, that they're doing valid work, and I'm in favor of all the reappointments tonight.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other counselors? No. Thank you for joining us this evening. You can see the clerk for the paperwork tomorrow.
Thank you.
Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is reappointment of Neola Construction as a licensed drain layer.
Good evening. My name is Ralph Miola from Miola Construction. And we used to be at 165 Clark Ave in Chelsea, now at 35 Longwood Ave in Saugus. I think you have the new address.
Okay. Thank you for noting that, and thank you for joining us this evening. Do any counselors have any questions? This again is a reappointment. Seeing as there are none, this will be voted out favorably to the committee of a whole. You can see the clerk on Wednesday for your paperwork.
Wednesday what?
Wednesday, you can get your paperwork from the clerk's office.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is a new appointment of James T. Lynch Construction as a licensed drain layer. Is there a representative from Lynch here? No, we'll keep this in committee. Next is a reappointment of McGrath Enterprises as a licensed drain layer. McGrath, sorry.
Hi, I'm James Connors, owner of McGrath Enterprises, 28 Oakville Street, Lynn, Mass.
Thank you for joining us. Again, this is a reappointment, so if there are any questions, no. This will be voted out favorably to the committee as a whole, and you can see the clerk on Wednesday for your paperwork.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the Revere City Council's appointment subcommittee for this evening. We'll make a note that calendar items 56, 57, 58, and 60 will be voted out favorably, and 59 will stay in committee for one more week. Thank you.
I hit that. Yeah. You can put it back on, but you gotta shut it off again. It doesn't hold it off. You have to keep everything, yeah.
Good evening, and welcome to the Revere City Council meeting for April 8, 2019. Please rise to salute the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Prior to this evening's meeting, I have a couple of announcements I'd like to make. The first is very sad to report. We had a couple of passings of people within our community that deserve recognition by not only the City Council, but the membership and the residents of the City of Revere. The first being Vincent Camerata. He was a U.S. Navy veteran. He was a senior code inspector at the Board of Health for 18 years in the City of Revere. He was with the Revere Parks and Recreation Commission. He also served in an elected capacity as a Revere School Committee man. He also served the city in the Conservation Commission. And very importantly to him, and meant a lot to him, the Elder Affairs. But more importantly, he was known for the many rights he wrote to the local newspapers in letters to the editor. He was always very positive in his description of what he had to say, and he always held Revere in a regard that was high above. And we all will certainly miss Vincent. He was a first-class family man and a first-class gentleman, and we certainly will miss him. The second passing we had this week was a gentleman that's not known to most people, but certainly his son is. His name is Charles Maniscalco. That's John Maniscalco, who works for the DPW of the City of Revere. I don't think there's anybody in the community that doesn't know John and Nancy. Two wonderful people who expressed their views so nicely in their friendship to everybody within our community. And it's certainly, both of these gentlemen will be certainly missed, not only by their families, but also their friends and neighbors. So I ask at this time that you please rise for a moment of silence. Thank you. The other update that I would like to make is that we received communications from two members of the City Council who won't be with us this evening. The first, John Powers, who was in a car accident. He's home resting after a little period in the hospital. We wish John a speedy recovery, and we know he'll be with us very soon. And the other is George Rotundo, who's home resting also, who just left the hospital, and we hope George a very speedy recovery. Madam Clerk?
Mr. President, if I may.
Ms. Councilor Nowakowski.
Mr. President, I know this is a little out of order, but since the passing of Mr. Camerata, and since he was a former member of the Revere School Committee and also a veteran, I'd like to make a verbal motion at this time that the City Council authorize the placing of a memorial plaque at the choice of the family, at the location for the choice of the family, somewhere in the city, wherever they would like.
Madam Clerk, so noted. Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
Roll call of the members for attendance. Councilor Janino? Here. Councilor Keefe?
Here.
Here. Councilor McKenna?
Here.
Here. Councilor Morabito?
Here.
Here. Councilor Novoselsky?
Here.
Here. Councilor Patch?
Here.
Here. Councilor Powers is absent. Councilor Rizzo?
Here.
Here. Councilor Rotundo is absent. Councilor Zambudo?
Here.
Here. And Council President Guanasso?
Here.
Here. Quorum is present. Approval of the journal of the regular meeting of March 25th, 2019.
All in favor?
So move.
Thank you. The next item of business, Madam Clerk and members of the Council, I'd like to ask for a suspension of rules for the purpose of taking up calendar item number 18, the auditor's presentation. Rick Versay will come and make a brief presentation to the City Council and to the members of the audience and to the City of Revere. Mr. Versay, our City Auditor.
Thank you, Councilor. Richard Viskey, City Auditor, Budget Director, 281 Broadway. I thought I'd take an opportunity to come before the council just to give a brief presentation and update on where we are with a financial overview of where we are and a brief timeline on what the budget presentation will look like. So I apologize. I thought we were going to have on the big screen here, but I guess we had some technical difficulties, so I'll just go through the PowerPoint presentation. I'll try to be brief. So basically, we just wanted to give a financial condition overview of the city and create a timeline for the 2020 budget and just convey some other related information. The goal is to present this information to the City Council and to inform you of our projected timelines for the budget for fiscal year 2020. Not only the operating budget, but the enterprise fund budget and the capital budgets. And to try to answer any questions and concerns. I know it's a big meeting here, but I'll try to answer any questions as they come up. So we just recently got a bond rating of AA, which confirms our rating from last time from Standard & Poor's on our next general obligation bonds. We have a stable outlook on our financial future based upon what they call Revere Strong Economy. Private and public redevelopment has produced some significant property-based growth. We had about 13% new growth in fiscal year 2018 alone. Some of the future development opportunities of Suffolk Downs and Wonderland are looked upon favorably, and the creation of a city master plan was also looked at favorably. So I'm happy to present that we are not going down in rating. We are stable, hopefully going up with some more good news. They quoted our strong budgetary flexibility and liquidity. We have about 70% of our available fund balance as a total of our operating expenditures, about $32 million when we closed the books in 2018. And government cash is about 22% of our total fund expenditures. So those were pretty positive things. They did have a couple of concerns, and most communities have the same concerns. We have a large liability for our pension and our other post-employment benefits. Right now, we're about 54% funded in our long-term pension obligation. And as you know, we had just recently adopted a OPEB liability trust fund, of which we put $500,000 in there. That's important because if we fund that OPEB liability, we get credit for those dollars in the bank and the appreciation of those interest earnings and such, and it helps us when they do an actuarial report. So we're coming up with some guidelines, hopefully for the 2020 budget, that we will earmark money every year to put in that OPEB trust fund so we can hopefully get them to look favorably at the way we're handling the OPEB, similar to like we're handling the pension. Any questions on any of that stuff? I'll move on. So I just want to give you a quick snapshot of some of the trust and fund balances we have in the city. After the appropriations we made from free cash, we have about $8.3 million in the general fund stabilization. We have about $6.5 million in the water and sewer stabilization. Capital improvement stabilization fund has $2.1 million, and the community improvement trust fund has about $1.1 million there. A lot of those dollars go towards the flexibility that we have within our budget. So these are all positive things. We had certified free cash of $6.1 million. We spent a lot of that supplementing our stabilization funds and some capital road work and such that were approved at the last council meeting. We also have about $2.4 million left of the $2.8 of the water and sewer retained earnings. And again, we just added the OPEB liability trust, and there is $500,000 in that trust fund as we speak. So, as far as the budget submittal, just a brief overview. Mass General Law states within 170 days of the annual organization of city government, the mayor shall submit a budget to the city council. That technically would be around the end of June. We don't anticipate submitting a budget at the end of June, but that's the Mass General Law that applies to the city of Revere. There's really no mandated format for budget documents. The Mass General Law does not, it's absent of any specific formats. We happen to use the GFOA model of budgeting, which is a pretty rigorous budget document that ultimately hopefully gets us another distinguished budget award. So we present our budget to the council with GFOA specifications. So we'll continue that process. I don't know if you got it, but we did bind up the budget books that we did last year. Hopefully that'll help you. We asked that maybe the binders, if you have them, you can recycle them. We'll be happy to use them again, but I just wanted to get you a copy of the bound budget book as it was submitted to the GFOA. So Just a little bit about the GFOA. It's the only national awards program in government budgeting. It's an annual award that continues on focus on continuing improvement and promotes best practice in public budgeting. Try to be transparent and accountable and provide people who may not be savvy with budgets and able to pick up the budget document, understand it, ask some logical questions. So we'll continue on that course. We have received this Distinguished Budget Award for the past 5 years. We await fiscal year 19s, and we hope to continue on fiscal year 2020. There's a little more information on the GFOA budget. I won't read from the slide, but with regard to the budget timeline, we're in the process of updating the 5-year capital plan and the 2020 capital budget for the City Council. I anticipate having a council order before you with capital improvement expenditures at the next council meeting. So on the 22nd of April, we're going to have some pay-as-you-go requests for capital improvements. And then the following meeting, we plan to have all the other capital requests, which will require bonding and such. So hopefully the idea is to present capital budgets to the council, get a feel for whether they're being approved or not, and then with regard to bonded debt, you know, if we get approval there, we can build it into the operating budget model. So I'd like to get you the capital budget first, contemplate that, and then we'll come in later with the operation budget. Operating budget, general fund is your general government, your public safety, your public works, education, all the appropriations you make as part of the general fund budget. We anticipate submitting the general fund operating budget and the enterprise budgets by June 3rd, 2019. So hopefully that gives plenty of time for Ways and Means to set up their meetings and have all the departments before you.
That big date is June 13th?
June 3rd.
June 3rd.
June 3rd.
Terrific. That's great.
And again, that's it. So we just wanted to relay to the council that it's been proven that we have a stable outlook by Standard & Poor's. We have strong budgetary performance and good underlying economy. We maintain our AA rating. The administration will seek to maintain and improve upon these ratings by delivering a balanced budget that adheres to the guidelines of the GFOA. It will be balanced. It will be within the Proposition 2.5 levy limit. And we'll just do our best to present a clear and concise budget for deliberation. And again, just wanted to kind of give you a brief update. Last year I was new, kind of got thrown into it, but try to give you guys a little more insight on where we are. So
we really appreciate that.
So I'm happy to answer any questions if you so allow.
Any members of the City Council wishing to have any questions? If not, we really thank you for your presentation. It would have been so much nice if we could have put the PowerPoint into play. I know you tried to do that, but in the short spell, you just came up with this, which is very informative, but it would have been more objective for people at home viewing, but we tried, and it didn't work. So
I'm sure we'll have it up for the actual budget, so thank you again.
You know, you tried. That's it. That's all we can ask for.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it. Next. I'm going to place that on file. Motion placed back in regular order of business. All in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 3, joint utility company meeting with Verizon, National Grid, and Comcast to discuss double pole work.
Well, we have one gentleman with us this night from the great National Grid, Dan Cameron. We appreciate you being here. We got a late communication from Angela from Comcast. She'll be unable to attend tonight's meeting. And Stan from Verizon made his intentions known that he also couldn't make tonight's meeting. But Dan, you are the victim. I mean, you are the presenter. Any membership of the City Councilor McKenna?
Thank you, Mr. President. Dan, hi. Hi. So I've been on the council before years in May. And I've been dealing, and this has nothing to do with double poles, but it has to do with National Grid.
Point of information.
Okay.
This is for poles.
Okay, so I have one pole, okay, 76. I've been asking for 4 years for it to, there's cement around it. It's on a crosswalk. Probably 60-foot crosswalk. The light is out, and this has been, it will be 4 years in May that I've been a counselor, and I've been asking for 4 years to have this light fixed, the cement removed, and the double pole to be removed.
Is that a metal pole?
It's not. It's wooden.
Okay.
And I just want to say that I have 17 lights that are out in Beachmont that I'd like to have fixed.
Okay. Are some of them on Revere Beach Parkway?
No.
Okay.
Most of these are on
Side
Winthrop
streets?
Ave, Rita Singer Bridge.
Okay.
Have they been submitted through 311?
They're National Grid.
I know.
It's
Request to repair them, have they been submitted to 311?
No.
Because I know I've gotten tremendous response submitting them through 311.
They've been reported to office, DeLeo's office. Barbara and Joan Masillo are trying to work with National Grid DCR to get these fixed. But some, and I know I'm not supposed to talk about this, but it's so important. 4 of them are on major crosswalks, and they're out. And they're in 1 mile radius of each other. So, and it's one of the streetlights is where those 2 girls got killed. It's been out. So I don't want to say any more because I'm just, my blood boils every time. No offense to you, respectfully, but every time National Grid is here, my blood boils because nothing gets done. And I just, maybe it's a conflict because of me, and we just don't see eye to eye, but the last time that you were here, you took a photograph of the list of these 17 lights that I had, and that was probably a year ago, and they're still out. So I'm just, I don't know, tonight's not a good night for me.
Well, I think it is, Council. I think we're going to get some results from this, Dan, because
I don't know.
she's pleading for help and relief for her residents. 17 lights out, and she gave you a picture of the information?
Yeah, about a year ago.
That has to be attended to.
Okay. I can tell you that we do still have a number of lights out on, Winthrop Ave, Revere Beach Parkway. I can tell you that we do not own the underground conduit system. The DCR owned it, and now Mass Highway does.
Okay.
We've been told for the last year that they were going to get out there and fix it. We have fixed every single light on that entire stretch that we could fix under our responsibility. So the latest was that we're not going to be back out there until after the winter.
May I say something?
Sure.
So the Rita Singer Bridge has been out for longer than I've been a counselor. I know Councilor Novoselsky has addressed this. So a letter was sent by the mayor to the Mass DOT and DCR to take a look at what was going on down there. And what they found was a wire that was down, that is National Grid's wire, and it was on a fence, and they couldn't touch it. So a letter was sent to you, National Grid, in November, saying that they could not touch this wire, that you guys were responsible for it. And this wire is still on a fence. It has not been touched. Here we are in April, okay? I'm worried because I'm thinking that, that's a cut through for Garfield School. Kid goes by there, touches the fence. The kid, if it's a live wire, we have a disaster. But nothing's been done. And you guys did receive the letter because I got a copy of that letter saying that in November they went down to look at that wire to see what they could do for the Rita Singer Bridge, because people are now walking over that bridge going into their apartments because we have so many apartments on Revere Beach. And they're walking in the dark and they're in fear of their lives, that something's going to happen. Okay. So Mass DOT and DCR sent you guys a letter saying that the wire was down. It was your responsibility to fix the wire, and that wire is still down.
Okay.
And that was in November.
Council, I'm not aware of this. I'd be glad to, if you give me the address.
If I can get you the letter, I'll get you the letter.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is in relation to some of the poles that were removed on Park Ave by the stadium, Harry De La Russa. Just if you can, I know that the poles are now gone, and we appreciate that, but some of the ground where they were needs to be refilled in. There's still some divots in the ground in front on the sidewalk along the stadium.
Sorry.
And then there was a request which has been responded to by National Grid for a light at the corner of Oxford and Mountain Ave. We were told the work would be done within the next couple of weeks, and I was just hoping if you can follow up on that. It was a light added to the corner street pole on the corner of Oxford and Mountain Ave. Thank you.
Any other councilors wishing to speak? Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dan, welcome back.
Thank you.
I know we've had some phone conversations over the last months while you weren't here, but just basically right now I'm looking at 34 DeHone Street. They replaced the double pole there and left the asphalt there instead of concrete.
Okay.
Excuse me. And also at Walden Street, 10 Walden Street. There's another one. That goes back to March of 2016.
It's a street light?
Yeah. And double pole on Florence Ave. They haven't done, you're next online on that, and hasn't even been touched since it put in. And I believe that's 2 years.
Pole 719?
Yes.
Okay, that's ours.
Okay. Now, I have a lot of the old emails dating back to 2011.
On that pole?
For various poles. I did street lights. I have spoken to Anna while you were away, and she put in some new orders, and that was like 3 weeks ago. That one, 91 Centennial Ave was one that you and I talked about. Then there was 15 Centennial Avenue. So, those are over a year old. So, I'm as frustrated as Councilor McKenna. And I know you're our voice to these guys, to your operations people, and I can tell you that I'm not happy with them. It just doesn't seem like they're doing an exerted amount of work in Revere. And Councilor McKenna is showing part of it. I'm showing part of it. Councilor Keefe is showing part of it. And I know you're a big company and you handle a lot of area, but I'm just not happy. I don't want to get into the gas line work, which is a disaster, especially on North Shore Road. And I did talk to you about the storage of equipment on our streets that we're not even doing any work in our neighborhoods. And now our streets can't get swept. The neighbors don't have a place to park their cars. And I'm very specific on Walcott Road, Curtis Road, Clark Road, Elliott Road. Definitely not happy, and based on the rules you've put out that you're going to asphalt half the road of North Shore Road, I'm not happy with that. I told you that, and I think, with all the bad things that we're going through, traveling over that road, people are going up Campbell Avenue to avoid that roadway, and they're speeding up there and just waiting for something bad to happen, which something actually had happened. We had several motor vehicle collisions with people speeding up that road because they were avoiding North Shore Road. And I think you ought to go back to your company, consider paving it curb to curb. Give us a little mitigation out of it, because all we're getting now is headaches.
I know, I did talk to Andrew about that job, Councilor, and the main work is all done. We'll be working on services. He should be out of there within a month.
Yeah, originally, I was told 3 months. Yeah. So if and when they started, but I still would request that you seriously go back to your leadership and ask them to repave that road curb to curb.
Poles only, sir.
Yeah. Well, it's too late. That Council, Mr. President, you already opened the door with that, but
Councilor Morabito.
We're over at that. So thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
First, let me say glad to see you're doing well. What is your protocol in terms, what's the company protocol in terms of when there is maintenance being done, where do you keep the apparatus? Is there protocol?
Well, we try to avoid to make the whole process go quicker. It's easier if you can leave the equipment near the site. Otherwise, you know, we're bringing it into the city every day, bringing it out of the city every day. So we do try to leave it in the neighborhood as best we can. I understand that, you know, in the city it does get very congested. The infrastructure is old. We're trying to replace it, and I think we just have to try to work together. You know, if there is a staging area nearby, sometimes, you know, we try to, if we can, use a staging site nearby, but a lot of times we're forced to leave it in the neighborhood.
So is it prioritized through keeping them on main roads? Is there any protocol to say, we'll keep them on side streets, or?
Well, it's in the area where we're working. That's what we,
so does it, so say if it's a main road and a side street's perpendicular, would they
probably go on the side road?
Or side road?
Yeah, and the less traveled road.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of times that's for safety.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the list that's out. These are all the poll numbers. I went around and got every single light that was out. The other thing I want to say is Councilor Novoselsky and we don't mean to beat you up, but every conversation that we have when you're in front of us is we're really disappointed that we're not getting the work done. We're really disappointed that we have to have this conversation year after year after year after year, and nothing is ever done. And I understand you're just the messenger, but can we just do something here? Because I just feel like Revere gets thrown, to the back of the list. If it was Wellesley and there was 17 lights out in Wellesley, do you think that National Grid would go out there and fix them? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. But Revere, it's the attitude with everybody, and I'm just so sick of it. We had 2 little kids get killed, and that light where they were crossing is out. And yes, the woman was to blame, but you guys hold some of that responsibility too, because that light is out in a major crosswalk. So, come on. Let's do our job here. I do my job. You're a $1 trillion company. Come out and fix 17 lights. And I understand that some of it you cannot fix, like Revere Beach Parkway, but have you even come out to Winthrop Ave and see we have major crossways with crosswalks and the lights are out? Thomasella Drive, the lights out. Exxon gas station, that's a crosswalk. The lights out.
Councilor McKenna.
All right, I know, I'm sorry. I'm just sorry.
I appreciate your concern. We all share the grief and expression of what's going on here, but you did explain to us that DCR is part of the problem. Maybe with your resources, you can reach DCR to assist us on this, and we'll give you a great amount of praise the next time you come before this council.
Yeah,
Councilor Zambudo.
I will say that I ran the list over the last 2.5 months where we've repaired over 300 lights in the city.
Okay. I know. You've done quite a few.
We haven't got to a lot of them come in through the 311 system.
And that's what I use, and that's why the first thing I've asked the council about, if DCR is involved with it, and it's an underground situation, I know it's beyond your control, but maybe you can reach out to them and say they need a little help there. Yeah. And we can also contact Speaker DeLeo's office, who has direct contact with DCR. Commissioner Leo seems to be a very good guy. I mean, okay. We'll work on it. Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was a little bit confused. Are the 17 lights on the parkway?
Through the chair.
Okay, no, because what I'm trying to figure out here is that maybe I'm doing something different than you. It usually takes me a week at the most to get a light fixed by going through the way I do it. So I'm trying to figure out what went wrong here. Because
Maybe I should come to you then.
no, it just might not be that we're not doing the same thing if I'm getting it done and you're not. So I'm just trying to help. I want to make this work is what I'm trying to say. So I'm not criticizing you. I'm just, you know, I've over the years I haven't had much trouble getting lights fixed.
I have called National Grid. I've called Speaker DeLeo's office. Barbara has the list.
Council McKenna, through the chair.
But I understand. No, if it's the Parkway we're talking about, that's a different story.
We've gone further than polls require.
I know. Well, this is about conduit. So
this is a real situation that has to be handled, and it's a very serious situation. Yeah. And I think collectively now
we'll work on it together. Yeah.
But I think it also requires everybody getting involved, right. Because if it's beyond your control.
If you give me another minute,
one more minute.
I just want to say that, you know, I heard that, you know, there's nothing being done. I've been here a long time, and I remember when nothing was done. There's a lot being done. There's a lot of cooperation with the utilities nowadays. We've come a long way. It's not perfect, and it takes time, and some things get lost in the shuffle, but we're a lot better off than we were years ago here. So I just want to make that clear, that this new system, and it's probably 10 years old now or whatever, but we've come a long way, and some of us that have been here a long time know that it used to be much more frustrating than it is now. We do get things done. There are always exceptions to the rules, and some things get lost in the shuffle, but we have a much better system than we ever had, and I, for one, am happy with the cooperation most of the time from the utilities.
Thank you, Council. Council Patch.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dan, I see that we got, what, 151 double poles on the list?
151, yes.
80 of them are National Grid.
Yes.
So I just wonder why you don't, all you have to do is move your electric wires to the next pole and get the ball rolling for everybody else. You know, I understand I have the same problem with the lights, but I do go through 311 and I do email you personally. Yeah. And would I like it done quicker? Yes, but they do get done. But on this case with the double poles, you know, if you get your crews out there to move your wire, then everybody else, we can yell at them.
We have made, we've set a lot of new poles. I don't know if you've noticed, we had a project run through the city, so it's gone up, it's gone down, but I think that number's down about 15, right? Because the number was run maybe 3 weeks ago.
Right.
Or a couple of weeks ago, yeah.
I just got one other question on this, on the bad order here for moving wires. The second one is the fire department. We can actually, there's 32 poles with the fire department. We can get that probably taken care of. And I think that's the last step, right?
And from there then there's the other one, the third party.
The 24, the third party, but you got municipal on it here.
It's fiber.
A lot of them are data companies too, right?
It could be yours, it could be someone else's data, but a lot of times it's the city.
All right, well, we can, maybe, Mr. President, we can do something to get that moved.
Well, I think what's happening, and the frustration is now existing, and it seems these councils are sharing frustration with you, Dan, is in reference to we were making such great headway with the removal of all these double poles. Now, all of a sudden, we get another infusion of all these double poles. We see these double poles coming back again. We had it down to a manageable number. We were getting relief, people being pleased by the performance that was occurring. And now all of a sudden, we're back in the same picture where we just started. And that was years back. Yeah. So it gets to be really frustrating because there's nothing pretty about an ugly telephone pole. That's about the ugliest thing a community can have. And so to get double poles is even a kablash. You don't want that at all. So we understand, Dan, and I for one, 311 has been a miracle worker for me, and you respond right away. It must be a magic touch that happens in Ward 3 because I'm getting some results with the lights out. And I appreciate that. And the council thanks you for your attendance, and thank you very much. Okay. Thanks for being here. Madam Clerk?
Calendar item number 4, hearing called is ordered on an ordinance prohibiting the distribution of single-use disposable plastic shopping bags.
Is there any proponents for this particular ordinance? Any proponents? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Motion was made by?
You have a letter here. This was submitted by Representative Vincent. She would like to go on record as a proponent.
Okay. Any other proponents wishing to speak in favor of this particular motion? Hearing and seeing none. Any opponents? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this ordinance? Hearing and seeing none. Any city councilors wishing to weigh in on this particular subject? This is going to a subcommittee, yes. No, excuse me, councilors, this is going to refer to the Legislative Affairs on April 22nd at 5 p.m. This is the public hearing for this ordinance. This is not a subcommittee hearing. This is a public. Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Council President. I want to speak my opposition to this proposed ordinance here, and again,
bear in mind this is going to a subcommittee.
I know, but there's a lot of information out there, and we talk about getting information, and I talk about how these feel-good things don't have any effect, and this is one that is a perfect example. I was in Boston the other day, and I went in the CVS store, and my option was to carry the stuff out or pay 5 cents for a heavier plastic bag. I told the story at Christmas time that I was 15 minutes in line waiting to buy gift cards, and 2 store attendants were trying to stuff a down jacket into a paper shopping bag. And I finally said, as the line kept building, why don't you just put that in a large plastic bag like we always did? Oh, we're in Boston. We can't do that. There are some things that aren't going to fix the world. This is one. China has 90% or 95% of the plastic.
Council, this is
the United States has 3%. You're not going to do anything. It's a pebble in the ocean.
Thank you.
And I oppose it.
Councilor Keefe, bear in mind, we don't want to hear this twice now. This is going to subcommittees, and I really stick by that rule that, we express our views in the subcommittee. You can say anything you want, you can bring all the data and information, but this is going to a subcommittee already established on April 22nd at 5 o'clock. Councilor Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just as the chair of the Legislative Affairs, I would just ask through you to any other councilors to bring any information or facts to the meeting, and we'd appreciate that so we can have a proper discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Madam Clerk, Legislative Subcommittee.
Zoning Subcommittee report.
Legislative Subcommittee, that's where that's going filed. Yeah.
Next item on the agenda is the Zoning Subcommittee report.
Mr. Chairman, Zoning Subcommittee. Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we know, we had a zoning subcommittee meeting this evening. We had 3 items on the agenda. One was a moratorium. We left that in committee. The other was the AT&T wireless special permit. We also left that in committee, and we're waiting for some further data. And the one that was item 19053 was reported out favorably with conditions, and I would like a vote on that this evening, please.
The vote is, shall the City Council grant the relief by the petitioner to change the use of the property located at 283 Cushman Avenue for a daycare use to an office use, with the findings and conditions set forward by the Site Plan Review Committee? A roll call is in order.
Councilor Gino.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morbido.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Powers is absent. Counselor Rizzo? Yes. Counselor Rotundo is absent. Counselor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes, the special permit has been granted, subject to the findings and conditions of site plan review.
And the other two items were to remain in committee.
So noted. Next up is the Appointments Subcommittee report.
Appointment Subcommittee reported by Chairwoman Jessica Janino. Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. President. I spoke with my colleague, Councilor McKenna. Oh, how about a different?
This is the Appointment Subcommittee report. Did you ask her permission that you could report it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we met earlier this evening, just prior to this meeting, and several items came out of our committee. However, there was a little miscommunication. There are two people that were in attendance this evening that were communications to go to committee but actually appeared this evening. So if I may, can I suspend rules to take up those two people so we can...
Absolutely.
Perfect. All in favor, all opposed?
All in favor, all opposed. Absolutely, it was granted.
All right, so the first one was for Sasso Construction. So if there's someone from that company, if you'd come up.
Hello.
Hi. So it's a reappointment. I don't have any questions. Does the council have any questions? No? Well, thank you for appearing before us tonight, and you can see the clerk on Wednesday for your paperwork.
Thank you.
And then I know Diane Colello is also here. I'm not sure if she was here for...
She left. I told her there's no need to stay in attendance because we're not going to vote on that until next week.
Perfect. All right. So for my committee report, they were all taken up favorably. So I asked that we take up number 8, 9, 10, 12, and Sasso.
28.
Yep, 28. 11 I'm going to keep in committee because they did not appear before us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Vote. All in favor? All opposed? So ordered.
Rule 23, committee reports. The following motions or communications are being reported out of committee with a recommendation to be placed on file. Calendar item number 13, motion presented by Councilor Morabito that the mayor be requested to investigate the feasibility of consolidating trash pickup to Monday through Wednesday.
Is Councilor Morabito?
Mr. President, refer to committee and keep in committee.
Refer it to committee.
Calendar item number 14, motion presented by Councilors McKenna and Janino that the city start an organic compost for residents to drop off their organic waste at a designated location.
Councilor McKenna and Councilor Janino, place on file. Place on file.
Calendar item number 15, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo that the City of Revere look into the feasibility of placing a Marine Corps statue on the American Legion building lawn.
Place on file.
Mr. Chairman, can we put that in the Veterans Committee, please?
You want to go to Veterans?
Yes, please.
Veterans Committee, so noted. And that's Chairperson Charlie Patch.
Calendar item number 16, communication from the mayor regarding a transfer of funds for Curtis Park.
Shall the City Council approve a transfer in the amount of $650,000 from the Community Improvement Trust Fund to the Playground Capital Improvement Account for Curtis Park?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Excuse me. Mr. President, these funds are coming out of the Community Improvement Trust Fund, which is not operations money from the City of Revere. These are funds that come from construction, specifically from the Shaw site. So we are in a time, in order for us to begin this on July 1st, we're in kind of a time gap. So I would hope that we can not put this in committee, voted for tonight, so they can start the process of doing the RFP and get it started by July 1st. So.
At your request, Chairman Rizzo, would that be fine with you, or would you prefer it go to Ways and Means?
No, Mr. President, this is simply a transfer. The money's been allocated, so I have no problem at all. I think the sooner we can get it done, the sooner that, you know, the people will be able to enjoy that park down there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the request of the Chairman of Ways and Means, a roll call is in order.
On the transfer, Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Morbido?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Powers is absent. Counselor Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Rotundo is absent. Counselor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes, the transfer has been approved.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. President, can we have suspension of rules for, so
Suspension of
Will
rules
not be
for the
prevailed.
hopes it does not prevail. All in favor, opposed? Reconsideration does not prevail.
Calendar item number 17, communication from the mayor regarding the senior work-off property tax abatement program.
That's ordered to a public hearing on May 20th at 6 p.m. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to introduce and explain some of the communications that we have before you this evening. We have a package of proposals that will, most of them are adopting Mass General law. So these are items that the state has, tools that the state has given to municipalities to actually give some help back to seniors, to our veterans, and to our Gold Star families. So just to walk through a couple of them, we have a real estate tax exemption for Gold Star families. I think it's pretty obvious that we would want to help those that have given that kind of sacrifice, and so this would simply ask the council to adopt Mass General law that would allow us to provide a tax exemption for our Gold Star families. We do have two Gold Star families in the community right now, I believe we gave a breakdown of some of the impact, financial impact on these items. The next one is a veteran work-off program. Those of you know, most of you know or should know that we have a senior work-off program. Again, we would adopt Mass General law that would allow us to provide a similar program to our veterans. It would be provided to either veterans, the spouses of disabled veterans, or the surviving spouse of a deceased veteran. And they would be able to volunteer, work for the city, and gain up to $1,000 off of their property tax obligations. Another piece that we have before you tonight is a personal property tax exemption, and this is for over 500 Revere businesses that have property tax valued under $10,000. This exemption would be less than 1 penny on our tax rate. So we thought this was another worthy piece another tool that the state has given us to promote and help small businesses. And then finally is a cost of living adjustment to our senior work-off program. The senior work-off program was instituted roughly 19 or 20 years ago. And since then, we have not looked at the cost of living increases. So what we did, and you'll see, I think in your packet, we have some information that would show what the cost of living increases have been over the last 20 years. And we would like to adjust the income limits to the current cost of living where it is now. And we would also like to adopt a change in the ordinance so that we would have cost of living increases built in each year. So we're not doing this again in 5, 10, or 15, or 20 years. So that's really the package. I know that only one is up for adoption, but I just wanted to present all of those together rather than coming up individually. And if there are any questions from the council, I know there may be further conversation, and we look forward to that further conversation. But I think I join with all of you in being committed to keeping the tax burden as low as possible, especially for our Gold Star families, especially for our veterans, and especially for our seniors. So this package would go a long way in doing that.
Well, bear in mind, anybody at home or anybody in the audience, this is going to go to a public hearing on May 20th at 6 p.m. So your input and your concerns can be addressed at that particular time.
Point of information.
Council, state your point, Councilor.
Mr. President, I believe, through you to the mayor, I believe we already adopted the veteran work-off program. If it's the same one that I put forth before the council, it was voted that we adopt Chapter 59, Section 5N, is that the same ordinance that we adopted?
Is it the same? I don't know if there was an official adoption, but we can check with the city clerk.
We'll review it, and on the 20th, we'll be ready for the proper presentation. Calendar item number 19, Madam Clerk.
Calendar item number 19, communication from the mayor relative to a business personal property tax exemption.
That's going to be referred to Chairman Rizzo's Ways and Means Subcommittee.
Calendar item number 20, communication from the mayor regarding ETP funds.
Shall the City Council approve the following expenditures from the ETP Committee? $9,995. Revere Production Switcher, $2,300. Cable TV Opportunities for Women Encouraging Empowerment, $17,465. Parks and Recreation Technology Upgrade. A roll call is in order. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
On the ETP expenditures, Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Morbido?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Powers is absent. Councilor Rizzo? Yes, Councilor Rotundo is absent. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes, and Council President Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes, the ETP expenditures have been approved. Calendar item number 21, communication from the mayor relative to the Revere School Traffic Supervisors Union Memorandum of Agreement.
Shall the City Council approve the appropriations necessary to fund the Memorandum of Agreement between the City of Revere and the school traffic supervisors? A roll call is in order. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
On the Memorandum of Agreement, Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Morbido?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Powers is absent. Councilor Rizzo? Yes, Councilor Rotundo is absent. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes, and Council President Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes, the MOA has been approved. Calendar item number 22, communication from the mayor relative to initiatives in support of Revere veterans.
This is Surviving Family Exemptions to Joint Committee on Legislative Affairs and Ways and Means Potential Cost Analysis. The other two items listed can be accepted. The parking space doesn't cost any money, and the Veterans Work-Off Program was a motion submitted by Councilor Morbido and approved by the City Council. All in favor? No, roll call is in order.
For the veteran parking space, shall the City Council accept Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 22A and 3/4? Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Morbido?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Powers is absent. Councilor Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rotundo is absent. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes, and Council President Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes, that general law has been accepted.
Madam Clerk?
Does the council want to check to see if this was officially accepted? It was, I do recall a motion by Councilor Morbido.
We can review it, and if it needs to be adjusted, we can do that automatically. We'll put that into the next. Through the chair, Councilor.
Point of information, it went to Councilor Rizzo's committee. It was voted in favor and then went before the council as a whole and then voted that evening.
So once the city clerk can confirm that, we can if it needs to be amended, we can do that if it's voted as accepted, or if you have another way we can approach it this evening.
You could, the council could put this into an appropriate committee until we can figure it out.
Okay. Is it Ways and Means? Ways and Means.
And calendar items 23 through 32, those are all appointments related. Number 28 has been taken up, though, by the Chairwoman Janino.
Exactly.
And those are all appointment related.
All over. All going to Chairwoman Jessica Giannino's Appointment Subcommittee.
And there's no further business.
No further business being in order. This city council will be held in adjournment until April 22nd at 6 p.m. Thanks for your attendance.